Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you, man. I'm here with Will Tukuafu, former NFL star for both the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers. Just kind of funny, those two teams in the years that you were playing there, they weren't exactly friendly at the time either.
No, it was big rivalry.
Yeah, and you got to experience both sides of that.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was intense, and starting off in San Fran, then switching over to Seattle, it was guys that your job was to go and take their head off, and then now they're your teammates, and then the guys that were your teammates, you're going back and getting after them. So it was like, it was crazy. It was fun though, man. It brought out the best in everyone.
Yeah, no, that was a very fun rivalry. I remember when Richard Sherman, intercepted that pass, and that whole entire excitement around when the 49ers and the Seahawks and everything was when they were playing in that time. Well, we'll kind of get into that a little bit more, but I want to back up your story a little bit more because you grew up here in Utah, went to East High School, and then ended up playing for Oregon, and have kind of a crazy story how you ended up there. But what was childhood like for you as a kid, like growing up in Salt Lake?
Oh, it was crazy, man. It was fun. I'm first generation. My parents migrated from the island of Tonga. And so when they came here, they had little to no English, and we grew up in the west side of Salt Lake. A lot of Section 8 housing. My parents worked as janitors. So growing up, I learned the value of hard work. You know what I mean? My parents, they were janitors. We cut lawns on the weekends. We just did whatever we could. And it was tough, man, but it was fun because I come from a big family. Mm-hmm. I'm one of 16.
One of 16 kids.
I have 10 brothers and 5 sisters.
Then you guys got an entire football team for both sides.
Oh, dude, I know, man. And some of my sisters, they'll be our best players.
Dude, how fun is that? How did you guys manage as kids? I'm just imagining this household with 16 kids. Give us an idea of some of the craziness that occurred with 16 of you running around.
Well, it was pretty bizarre, man. I look back on it now, how my parents managed it all, my older siblings. And it was wild because there's a big gap in age. Mm. Yeah, so when I was born, my dad was 60. So I did when I grew up, my dad wasn't that normal. I go out there and play catch, might tear his rotator cuff or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was that type of dynamic. My older siblings, they all acted as parents to me as well. Mm-hmm.
What number are you in the pecking order?
I'm number 15.
Are you really?
Yeah. So it's pretty bizarre. You grow up and your nephews are older than you. Your nieces are older than you. Mm-hmm. And it was completely normal to me, But I couldn't imagine it any other way. It was fun. There was always a place to go. Mm-hmm. There was always people to learn from. And I think that was the biggest thing is that being number 15, I was able to learn from all the older ones. And all the older nephews. And that's one thing my dad always taught me.
Well, that's one thing I love about Polynesian culture in general is that you guys have this family just love for each other. I have a lot of friends that are, come from the Polynesian islands, and you guys just have this camaraderie where you're always together. I can only imagine you guys get together now. How many nieces and nephews do you have in 16?
Oh, dude, I can't even remember. I mean, to kind of give you some perspective, I've played against some of my nephews in the NFL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So when you guys all say oh, that's my uncle or that's my cousin or that's my, you guys mean it. It's not because you're from the same place.
No, it's when people are like, oh, so how's such and such related to you? I'm like, well, his mom is my sister. Or, you know what I mean? I mean, for instance, Coach Kafusi, when he was at BYU.
Yeah.
So his mom is my sister.
Oh.
So he recruited me. It was that thing, hey, Steve, man, are we going to get your uncle? Blah, 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 this and that. And
yeah.
All the other recruits what, your uncle? I'm like, yeah, it's my nephew, bro.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I never knew any other way. But growing up now, I just look at the whole dynamic of it all. And I'm like, man, how did they do it, But they managed, and it taught me a lot of things.
Did you feel having that many siblings, obviously you get a lot of camaraderie within your own brothers and sisters. That's my family. We're 7 kids. And so I think that's a lot, right? And you do get a lot of the older ones. I'm 6 out of 7. So I'm the second to the bottom as well. And the older siblings kind of help raise you, right? They kind of help with a lot of that management of just kind of making sure you're taken care of and things like that. But For you, did you ever feel like, as a kid, did you ever feel like you weren't getting enough attention from your parents, or did you feel more like, oh, I have all this love from my siblings and things like that?
Yeah, exactly that. Felt like, man, I felt super special because there was always a place to go. Mm-hmm. You never were hungry. Mm-hmm. There was always a house to go. And whenever I got in trouble at school, instead of calling my parents, I'm like, oh, dude, call one of my older siblings. You know, they're old enough to be my parent as well. So I'm like, oh, yeah, it's my guardian. Don't tell mom, but don't tell dad. It was that type of thing. So it was cool. You know what I mean? Like on the weekends and stuff growing up through high school, like there was always a spot to go. Like, oh, yeah, my brother lives here. Or, hey, my nephew lives here. Let's go over here.
Wow. And you, as a kid, I mean, you said that you didn't play football as a kid because you had a heart issue. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was tough. I think I noticed it when I was like 8 years old. So I had this heart condition. So anytime I would do any like physical activity, my heart would just pound so fast. And I would get weak and even sometimes pass out. And so it wasn't even as bad as I had to get rides in the ambulance, get to the ER as soon as possible.
Did this happen a lot when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. Anytime I would do and I was on medication for years.
Wow. And
I had to wear a heart monitor for a whole year so they can track my heart and what triggered it. And so it was pretty bizarre. And the tough part about it is because our neighborhood was really tight. You know, we had a lot of kids there, and everyone played football. And so a guy from the east side, the east bench, he would come down. His name was Coach Romney, and his big red, I still remember him, big red Suburban. He would come down, he would park, and everyone would jump in the Suburban, and I would actually try to jump in there, and he, you know, this deep voice, Will, get out. You know, I'm crying. I'm getting out of the Suburban because, you know, he knows I can't go play football. And so it was rough growing up. I couldn't play any like physical sports, and even if I did, it would show because I would have these heart problems. Mm-hmm. You know, my heart would pound fast. I'd get weak, and you know, it was bad.
Well, that'd be tough too, just because all of your friends, all of your families, you're all into football, right? Everybody's playing but you. So, at what age did you overcome that, or how did you even get to the point where you were able to start playing football?
Yeah, so the summer going into my 9th grade year, I had a surgery. They did an ablation where they went in with a scope through like my neck and up through my groin area, and they went in there and they took care of the extra piece that was causing that. And usually, sometimes they say that it'll come back or you'll grow out of it. And lucky for me, like I just never had any episodes after that. And so they tracked me for like, I think it was 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. Then the doctor cleared me, and
wow, that's great.
Yeah, and I was ready to play freshman football.
So did you pick up? I mean, all of your family and all of your friends had been playing all along, but you ended up, I mean, becoming a huge football player, recruit. You get recruited to BYU. You didn't end up at BYU though, and so being that this is a Utah podcast, what happened there? How come you didn't end up playing at BYU?
You know, it was tough because, you know, I'm LDS, and so, you know, it was either go to school, play football, or go on a mission. And I was always raised that way, and so, you know, that was one of the goals I had growing up, was going on mission. And it was tough, but I chose to go on a mission. And so my family was poor. We didn't have money. And so when you're going on a mission, you have to pay for yourself. You know, so I had to work a year. And it was tough because I had already signed to play football at BYU. All my buddies were going to BYU, Oregon, Nebraska, everywhere. And I was working at a mechanic shop, Gold Cross Ambulance.
So you actually took a year off and worked to save money for the mission?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre because, you know, you have all these coaches talking like, what's your goal? Your goal to go to the NFL? And I'm like, yeah. Well, you know, if you go on a mission, that's going to take 2 years. If you work a year, that's going to be an additional year, 3 years. So by the time you come back and start college, you're a 21-year-old freshman. So it was like, man, like what do I do? Like, you know?
Yeah.
21, 22 years old, those guys are going to the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting college.
Well, I remember when, you know, it's this last year, BYU had, you know, a player that essentially they were in high school together with Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston was in like his second year of the NFL, third year of the NFL, and he's still quarterbacking at BYU, you know, because of redshirt year and the mission and everything else. So you went, where'd you go on your mission?
Jamaica.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
That's cool.
served in the Jamaica Kingston mission. It was the best. It was tough. It was hard. I left out on my mission at 260 pounds. I go for the whole 2 years, come back, and I'm 220.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was it hard to put that weight back on, or was once you got home with all of your siblings and family cooking, you
2 months, if that, 6 weeks I'll give it, and I was back up.
And so then did BYU hold your spot, or what happened there?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, so I come back from the mission, I do the whole homecoming thing. So I get back on like a Thursday, we do the homecoming thing over the weekend. Everyone's, we have BYU banners flying because they all know I'm going to BYU, right? And that's what I'm thinking. So I go and I sit in Coach Mendenhall's office, and he pulls out a folder and he says, you know what, we didn't want to bother you on your mission, but we received word from the NCAA clearinghouse that you were short of credit. And because of that, you are no longer eligible to go to a D1. You're going to have to go to junior college. And if you can imagine, man, I was heartbroken. I was like, what?
Well, you had taken that year off too. You could have taken that credit, right?
Yeah, and I was there. My best friends were over there. Fui Vakapuna, had a breakout year his freshman year. Mm-hmm. So I was there every weekend. We're over there. Those guys are coming back. I'm like, dude, you got a scholarship check. You guys got nice clothes, bro. Like, so I'm sitting out that year. I'm like, well, I'm waiting for my time. And so when my time comes, I'm told, like, dude, you got to go to a junior college. And I was devastated, bro. My brother, it's just my brother and I, we went up there, and now it's like we're driving back, we're leaving Provo, and we're like, what now? Set aside being embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, you've been thinking about for 2 years, like, your plan, right? Like, you've come 3 years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's just like.
Yeah, 3 years. Even while I was on my mission, like, my mission president, he would give me extra money because he's like, yeah, you're a big BYU fan. Like, here, make sure you're eating, make sure you're getting a little bit more food, protein in, and blah, blah, this or that. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was always on my mind. It was constantly there. Like, man, I'm going back to BYU, man. I can't wait. I'm going to live with my brother. He goes to school there. And now I'm told I got to go to junior college.
Wow. So how'd you decide where to go?
So I have a brother, come from a large family. There's a lot of brothers that are everywhere. I have a brother who lives in Arizona. He owned a Jamba Juice and a Hawaiian restaurant. And, he caught word of it. And he said, hey, there's a lot of junior colleges around me. Why don't you move out here? You can work for me and you can go to school. So one, you don't have to pay for food. You can work for me. You can just eat at the restaurant and go to school and pick a JC. And I think the next week I was flying out to Arizona. Just got on a plane and let's go.
And so then from there, you end up playing in Arizona?
Yeah, I did. So I committed, to Scottsdale Community College. So I just picked them randomly, right? It's the Fighting Artichokes.
Is that really their name?
Yeah, it is. And their history goes back because, they weren't really big on sports. So they wanted to get rid of the sports. So they named them the Fighting Artichokes. And their colors were like green and pink.
Amazing.
Back in the day. And so I go to this school, it's kind of like bizarre. Like, man, all right, let's go to Scottsdale. Where's Scottsdale? All right, down the street, just take the freeway, boom, boom. Or even cut across the reservation. It was closer to my brother's house. So I go there. I remember the first day of practice. I'm out there, and I see this big guy. He's probably 6'7", 290 pounds. And I thought he was an NFL guest speaker. Right? So I'm introducing myself to him like, hey, what's up, man? What team do you play for? Blah, blah. And he looks to me. He's like, I'm Lewis Holmes. I'm from Florida. I play here. I play DN. I'm like, what? If this is what guys look like in junior college, I don't know if I can cut it.
Was he just, did he have a similar situation as you where he just had to go to a junior college or something?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
And so he chose Scottsdale. And then later on that day, I come to find out that he's the number one JC recruit in the country.
Oh, wow.
So the next day, this is spring ball, mind you. So like,
this is your second day with the Fighting Artichokes.
Yeah, the Fighting Artichokes, bro. I mean, we're not even in pads, we're in shorts. So the next day, I come out to practice, and I start seeing coaches like Pete Carroll, LSU, Alabama's there, Michigan, Florida, Florida State. I'm like, whoa, these are like coaches that I've seen on TV. Like they're there. And so it worked out great because, as they're there coming watching this guy, I'm benefiting from
for sure
from him, and it was win-win all around, man.
Wow, that's awesome. So you ended up deciding, you were highly recruited at that point as well. Every Pac-12 school's coming after you. How'd you decide, or did you narrow it down? Did you have a school that you were kind of leaning towards, and how'd you end up at Oregon?
Yeah, so it was pretty weird because after that first year playing, I received scholarship offers. So in my own mind, I'm like, man, my goal is not to stay in JC and play another year. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I contacted every single coach that recruited me and offered me. And I said, hey, look, if I decide to sit out next year and not play and guarantee you that I can get my associate's degree in a year and a half, will you guys hold a scholarship for me? And they said, yeah, we've never heard of a player being able to do that, but all right.
So like you were like going to forego playing that year so that you could graduate quicker and move on to the D1?
Yep, go to D1 and play 3 years there. And so everyone thought I was crazy, but I was like, dude, I can do it. And so that's what I did. So I maxed out all my credits at Scottsdale, maxed out at Mesa Community College, and then I took online courses at Rio Salado. And then I was able to graduate. And so when it came down to which school I was going to pick, I did the whole recruit.com, all that stuff. Boom, media was there. I have 3 hats. I narrowed it down. So I had UCLA, Oregon, and Arizona.
Okay.
I think that's what it was.
Had you taken a trip to all 3 places to get to?
Yeah, okay. I've taken a recruiting trips there. I even took a recruiting trip back to BYU.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Did you consider going back to BYU where you had kind of started, or was it by then you were pretty done with it?
Yeah. It was cool because, it was just an opportunity I can bring my mom, because on these recruiting trips, they want to dine you. Like, they take you to the best hotels, they take you to the best restaurants, and for me, it was a good opportunity. I could bring my family along when I just flew down from Arizona.
For sure.
Have them wine and dine my family and whatnot. So it was cool. But when it came down to choosing which school, I did take recruiting trips there to all these different places. And, came down to choose, and I put on the Arizona hat, Arizona Wildcat.
You put on the Arizona hat?
Oh, yeah. I was going to Arizona. It was done deal. Like, let's go. And, yeah, that's where I was going to go.
So how did you switch, or why did you switch it up, I guess?
So there was going to be some extra benefits. You know what I'm saying?
To Arizona?
Yeah. So it was kind of tough because, like with these benefits, I was going to be able to help out my family like a lot.
So you're saying on top of the scholarship, they were basically
there was going to be
some friends of the program that were going to help out a little bit.
There's going to be some of those handshakes.
So for the for the random person listening, that's fascinating, right? Like, how do they go about telling you without actually just handing you money? Like, how does something like that even happen? If you don't mind sharing.
It's super discreet, you know what I mean? It's one of those.
Did you have an experience where you can?
Yeah, I'm at the game and watching the game, and they call me down. Hey, can we have you meet such and such? So I go down and meet.
This is at Arizona.
Yeah, I go meet this particular person, and as I'm done meeting with this person, he said, "Hey, you left something." And I'm like, "What?" So I go back to the meeting table where we met, and I see a little envelope. And I put the envelope in my pocket, and let's just say we were able to fill up our gas on the way home and go eat at a few different places. But it leading up to that whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Arizona.
Right.
2 weeks later, it was hard for me to sleep,
Just didn't feel good about the decision.
I didn't feel good about it. You know what I mean? On one end, I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to be able to have X amount, be able to help out my family, go play at a good school. But I knew it wasn't right, man. I knew it wasn't the right thing, right? And Oregon kept popping up in my mind. And keep in mind that I already called Oregon and said, look, I appreciate you recruiting me. I'm not coming there. I'm going to Arizona.
You hadn't actually signed, though. You had just kind of made the
verbally
decision.
Committed, yeah. And so, dude, it was crazy because I do that, 2 weeks later, like one night, after my nightly prayers or whatever, I get up. And I'm like, it was like probably like 10:30, 11 at night. And I'm like, man, I can't go to Arizona. So right then and there, I get the phone. I call the offense coordinator for Oregon, Coach Crowan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I called him up. He was the one recruiting me pretty heavily. And I call him. He answers the phone. He's like, "What's up, Will? How you doing?" And I was like, man, I just called this dude, and he's trying to, when I call him and tell him I'm not going there, I'm going to Arizona, he's trying to like stay on the phone with me, like, "Will, what's going on, man? Like, well, but what can we do?" Blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm like trying to brush him off. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, I appreciate you.
Got another call coming in.
Yeah, boom. And then here I am calling him back at 11 at night, like 2 weeks later. And I'm like, hey, coach, if I decide to change my mind, do you think you'll have a scholarship? And he's like, of course. And I'm like, well, done. I'm changing my mind. Can I come to Oregon? He's like, yeah, we'd love to have you. So he jumps on a flight the next day, right? So he flies out there with our D coordinator, Coach Alioti, at Oregon. And I tell him the whole story, like, hey, yeah, just didn't feel right, but let's go. I want to come to Oregon.
That's how you ended up at Oregon?
That's how I got there, man. And so it was crazy having to call Coach Stoops and Coach Tukuafu at Arizona and tell them no,
So how was that phone call? Was it pretty quick, or
it was super quick on my end. I still remember it. I was sitting in the parking lot at Mesa Community College. I was ready to go work out, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, so how should I say this? Like, and I just told him, and he was so excited because crazy thing is, so his brother was the head coach at Oklahoma.
Yeah, Bob Stoops.
Yeah, so they're all together. So he's like, yeah, puts it on speakerphone. Yeah, man, I'm with my brother, man. This is Will Tukuafu, blah, blah, this and that. And I'm like, yeah, coach, something came up, man. I'm going to have to decommit. I'm going to go to Arizona. But I appreciate you recruiting me, blah, blah, everything. Thank you for everything. Thank you so much. And then the calls kept coming back. I just turned my phone off.
Oh, man. Well, and it's like somebody listening that might be like, but you're a kid, you're trying to figure out, this is like the biggest decision of your life. I always laugh when fans get all mad at recruits for like not knowing what they want to do. It's like, well, dude, you're 18, 19, or 21 years old, but you're still a kid and you're just trying to figure this out. And there's so many different things coming at you at once and different people giving you different sales pitches and everything else. So it's like, I've always had a little bit of empathy for the kids, and then fans, these are adult men, will like lose it over it when a kid says he doesn't want to come to whatever school they're supporting,
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You know what I mean? And then Coach Tukuafu, who was the D-line coach, he called me, and then I just explained to him, like, man, I just can't come there.
Yeah.
I mean, when I explained to him, like, man, you, as a coach, if I was a coach, I would want a kid that wants to be there, that wants to buy into the program, rather than a kid that just feels like he's obligated to go there for such and such, right? So he's not going to be able to give it to you 110% like you deserve. And so I explained that to him, it still didn't work out as smooth, as I'd hoped. But on my end, I was like good with what I was sharing with him, like,
So were you at Oregon, when you went to Oregon, was Coach Kelly there yet, or was it before then?
Yeah, so Coach Kelly came in as the offensive coordinator my first year. So we both came in the same time.
Okay.
And then Bilotti was my head coach for 2 years. And keep in mind, like, this is a Utah podcast. Before I got there, Oregon had just lost to BYU in the Vegas Bowl with the yellow helmets and whatever, blah, 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 this and that. And so it was like a down year for Oregon. I remember coming into that situation. It was like, we lost to BYU. We're going to burn these yellow helmets, blah, blah, this and that. So it was like a perfect storm for me to come in there. And with the whole recruiting scheme is, the coaches are like, hey, Will, look, what number do you want to be? We're going to make you the starter. I'm like, yeah, like their sales pitch, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I get there. I'm like the third string guy. I'm getting scout team reps, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to play this year. And fortunate for me, because I graduated early, I got there mid-year. So I got there in January.
Yeah.
So I was there for winter workouts, spring ball, and summer, and then going into training camp, so I can kind of position myself to play.
Yeah. Well, because you ended up, I mean, at Oregon, you ended up playing all 3 years. You started, I think, every game that you were there.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You know, like going in there, like I'm playing behind freak athletes, like one of the guys, you know, Victor Felipe, Utah guy from Highland. You know, Haloti was there. He just left. Dexter Manley, who his dad played in the NFL. Like, you talk about freak athletes, like this is a guy that's 280 pounds, runs like a 4.5, you know, benches 500 plus.
Yeah.
And so here I am coming, JC recruit in the country. Let's go, you know.
And so one of the fun things about Oregon that people know is you guys have so many different uniforms that you wear. Was that actually a big deal to the players?
Oh, it was huge.
You guys loved that?
Oh, we loved it, man. You know, when you go in there and their sales pitch is like, I mean, we're Nike.
Yeah.
You know, this is Nike. The stuff we're demoing out on practice is going to come out in 2 years.
That's pretty rad.
So that was like the whole pitch. And that was like a big selling point for me. Like, but more so for that, I was there because I wanted to be able to make different contacts, because I knew football wasn't going to last long. And I knew my chances of making it to the NFL were slim.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because you did end up having a great NFL career, which is funny because you played defense in college. You were defensive end. So did you know, like, in the NFL you had a better chance as a fullback? Or how did I guess draft day comes, you didn't...
So draft day comes, right? I'm there with my wife in our little apartment studio thing. So we're watching, and no call. Draft finishes, no call. I start getting calls about free agent, you know, prior to free agents and whatnot. And still nothing's guaranteed. So I finally get a call from the Niners. They said, hey, you know what? We got a rookie mini camp, and we'd love to have you come in as a tryout. So I'm like, oh, sweet, let's go, you know. And this is a 3-day mini camp tryout. So I go to San Fran. Well, let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's a crazy part in this. So they call me, right? They're like, hey, Will, we'd love to have you. Boom, boom. Are you in shape? So I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, I'm ready. So I go there for the 3-day mini camp tryout. And they tell me that they're going to sign me. And then they said, we appreciate you coming. We're not going to sign you. And I came to find out later is that my whole purpose of going there was to be, you know, camp body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I played D lineman coming in, and the Niners had just drafted 2 O linemen in the first round.
I remember that.
Yeah.
The guy from Idaho and...
Big Mike Ayupati and Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
And so studs, you know what I mean? Like in the first round.
So they needed some good defensive ends to go up against them.
I don't know if they needed good defensive ends. They just probably wanted to justify their drafting these guys in the first round, like, you know. And so it was tough because, you know, I'm trying my best to go really hard. And I get pulled aside and they're like, hey, you need to tone it down a little bit. I'm like, I'm trying to make this team.
Yeah.
And that's how I come to understand the term camp body.
Got it.
You know?
Your job wasn't to go and impress anybody.
Your job is to go be on these guys' highlight film. So when they say, we drafted this guy in the first round, this is why. So I go there and I come back and still no call. You know, then we're going into the summer months. We're going into training camp. Still nothing. 2 weeks into training camp, I get a call from the Niners. They said, hey, Will, something happened to one of our DNs. Are you in shape? And I'd been training really hard, you know. And there was some low points in that training. Like, man, I don't think I'm going to get on. You know, by this time, I'm 25. So this is when guys in the NFL are coming up on their second contract type deal, you know.
Yeah, most people, if you haven't made it by 25 in the NFL, you go move on to something else.
Yeah, that's it, basically. So they're like, yeah. I'm like, how much do you weigh? I'm like, 290. I'm like, okay, cool. It was a big deal because of their defensive scheme. They needed their D linemen bigger. They had an extra linebacker to flow and run around. You know what I mean? So they just needed D linemen that were bigger that can hold up gaps and whatnot. So they're like, we're going to fly you in tomorrow. No, actually, they're like, oh, we're going to fly you in tonight. And we have a game this weekend. This is like 3 days away. I'm like, oh, yeah, great. So I call up Crystal. Crystal's my wife. So she drops me off to the airport. And as I'm about to board the flight, the Niner calls. They call me back. They're like, hey, Will, did you get on the flight? I'm like, no, I'm in line. I'm like 4 people behind. They're like, yeah, step out of line. Something happened, and we're gonna head in a different direction. And so,
You're like, actually, sorry, I am on the flight. Just landed.
so dude, I was like, I'm trying to sound enthusiastic. Like, yeah, you know what? I appreciate you guys even considering me. Yeah, I'm in shape, so just give me a call. Because I knew that there was always an opportunity. The shuffle.
Yeah.
So
but that's got to be so hard to because you're staying in shape. You're trying so hard, and you get a call.
Yeah.
Only to have it's like if you've been trying to get a date with your dream girl, right?
Dude.
And like she finally and then she calls you as you're on your way to her house, and she's like, "Hey, something came up. We're getting back with the ex or whatever, right?"
Yeah, it was. Oh, dude, it was exactly that, man. So I'm trying to sound on one end, like, "Hey, man, I appreciate you even considering me, blah blah this and that," and then inside I'm like devastated.
Yeah.
So I try to get off the phone real quick because I didn't want Crystal to get home before I call her, hey, honey, can you turn around and pick me up? So anyway, she picks me up. We go home, and the next day I wake up. I'm like, well, I even talked to her that night. We're like, look, we knew it was going to be a struggle to try to get on. So if you want me to get a job, I will, and we'll just forget this whole thing. She was like super supportive. She said, look, this is what you want to do. This is what your goal is. Let's keep going for it this year at least. And I was like, awesome. So I woke up even more motivated the next day to go train and work out.
What a blessing, though, to have that support, in that time.
It was huge, man. Because, I mean, can you imagine? Like,
Oh, that's devastating, man.
And, like, we're just hanging on. Because,
Sure.
I'm, like, working a side job at Hoffman Construction Company, training, trying to get onto a team, and we don't have that much money, and we're just limited on a lot of different things. And so it's like, how long do we keep chasing?
Did you have kids at this time?
No.
Okay.
It was just us. So, how long do we keep chasing this dream? And the next day I wake up to go train again, just like normal. I come back to my phone. There's like a bunch of missed calls, voicemails. I call them back, and it's the 49ers. They're like, hey, Will, we're going to fly you in. Can you get to the airport in an hour and a half? I'm like, no worries. My bag is still packed. Jump on the flight, and I'm there. 2 days later, I'm playing against Peyton Manning.
Oh, wow. Did you get in the game?
I did.
So you went from that low.
Oh, bro.
2 days later, you're literally playing in the game.
The emotional roller coaster is bizarre, bro.
Amazing.
Like, I'm over there, like, I'm just so excited. Like, I get there, I run up, sign my papers, whatever, run down. Everyone's running down to the field. I'm, like, running out there, throwing on my jersey. And I'm just, like, hyped up. Like, I'm like, am I really here? Like, and we fly the next day, and then we play the Colts. Yeah, right?
So how do you even, like, join a team like that? You don't know the plays, you don't know the schemes. Right? I guess, is it that similar? They just basically said, go get the quarterback?
Well, no, because that was the big thing. One of my huge assets is understanding defenses.
Okay.
And understanding offenses, because I loved studying film. When I was at Oregon, I had great coaches that actually taught me so much. So that was one of the things that stuck with the coach at San Francisco, is how fast I was able to pick up the defense. And so that's one thing he said. Like, I remember the first day I got there, my first meeting, he said, "We'll get on the board." I'm there with like vets, like Hall of Fame vets, Justice Smith, Brian Franklin, Isaac Sopoanga, Ray McDonald. Like, our D line room was super talented.
Yeah, that was a very talented defensive line at the time.
Alden Smith, Ahmad Brooks, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. Like,
well, what a cool lesson for you, though, that because you put in the effort to study film and to get good at that and to learn the defenses, that was your advantage that actually gave you your opportunity over a bunch of other guys.
It was huge because they knew that they could plug me in right away. Because one thing that you have to understand is when you're playing, you're not just doing your job, but you're a piece in the whole puzzle, right? And if you're doing the wrong thing, you can get one of your teammates hurt. You know what I mean? You can get scored on. You can get gashed.
Football's the ultimate team sport, because if one guy misses his job out of 11, everything falls apart.
Oh yeah. So it was easy for them because they're like, well, look, Will knows what he's doing. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He's not the fastest. But he'll do his job. He'll do his role. Mm. And so I looked forward to that. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's go. So, the coach leading up to the game, because I'm like 3 days away, I'm like at home.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 days ago, I'm back at home. And so he's like, well, we probably can get you in the fourth quarter, but there's no promises. Something happens in the second quarter where like one of the D linemen goes down, like he gets a hit pointer. And this is preseason. So like the star vets, they only play like
couple plays.
A couple, you know
series.
What I mean? Yeah, there's a couple series and they're out.
Yeah.
And then it's leaving up to the rest of the guys. And so I see one guy, he goes down. His name is Derek. He goes down and he's like pointing, he gets like a hip pointer. And this is like early in the second quarter, and I'm like looking around and no one's running in. And he's like, dude, I'm hurt. Like, he's like waving someone on. And I'm looking at my coach. I'm looking at the other D lineman because I'm paying attention with everything. He just runs off. So I'm like looking around. I just run in, right? I run in. I don't even get the play.
Coach didn't even tell you to go in. You just ran in?
No, I just ran in. I didn't even get the play. Everyone was like lined up. I just knew that he's running
Somebody
off.
had to go in.
No one's running on. So I'm going. So I go. My first play, I don't even get the play call, but I just know by alignment where I need to line up at. Mm-hmm. And I just ask him, like, the other D tackle what the call is. And I remember that call, so I slanted in. Funny thing enough, like, my first play, I get a sack. I'm, like, hyped up. I'm like, oh, yeah, like, pumped, right? So I'm pumped up. Our coach was like, wow. There was fired up on the sideline. And then I play the remainder of that series and have a really good game and play the whole second half. I was dog tired, because football shape is different from just working out shape.
Yeah.
So I'm like dying, even though I'm dying, like out there, like puffing. I'm trying not to like show it, and then.
And so at what point did they let you know that you'd made the full roster and you were going to be?
Well, you know what? Because then even the next week, they're like, oh, we're not going to play that much. They're set on who they actually are looking for their roster and practice squad guys.
Yeah.
And I go in again and I get another sack and make a bunch of plays. Same thing happens the next week. And then they say, hey, Will, we're not going to bring you on. We weren't really expecting this of you.
You weren't supposed to do this.
And so, like, we're going to sign you to our practice squad. So I go on that year as the practice squad, and I get activated like towards the end of the season, and then make a heck of a career. And then I also transitioned. That's how I transitioned from, like, I think my third year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, going into my third year, I transitioned to start playing fullback.
Yeah, and so at that point, were you still with the 49ers when you transitioned to fullback?
I was. And funny thing is I meet with Coach Harbaugh. He's our head coach. And he really likes me, so he's really open to telling me stuff. So after our first spring ball practice, he says, hey, Will, we're going to draft a D lineman in the first round. And because we're going to do that, you're the last guy on the totem pole, so we're going to have to cut you. And he says, have you ever played fullback or tight end or anything? And I said, yep. I'm like, yeah, I have, man. I played fullback, tight end. And he's like, well, what game film can I watch at Oregon when you played? I'm like, no, we don't need to watch any film, coach. Just go ahead and give me the install, and I'll be ready to go. And so he gives me the install. And after I get that, right after those meetings that day, I pull Alex Smith and Kaepernick, who are our quarterbacks at that time. Mm-hmm. And I tell him, I said, dude, look, I need you guys' help. I lied to coach. I told him I played fullback. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude, they said they're going to cut me if I didn't know how to play any other positions. So he's like, okay, we'll help you. So aside from drawing the plays on my little wristband, I got a wristband from Cap, and being in the huddle with Alex, because during this time with the Niners, there was a lot of shifts and motions.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama between who was going to be the quarterback.
Oh, dude, it was crazy, man. It was intense.
And you were right in the middle of all that. Then.
Yeah, and I was cool with both of them.
Yeah,
man. Those were my guys. So going in the huddle, they helped me a lot. They would break the huddle late with me. They were like, after the calls comes, they're ready to break. And then they would just walk up slow with me, like, all right, Will. It was like super subtle, like, Will, line up here, motion here, block 55. I'm like, yes, sir. I would try to make it as smooth as possible.
That's pretty awesome.
And that's how I started playing.
Wow.
And then they gave me a chance to play during preseason, and it went really well. And being able to have a player switch over from defense to offense and play all special teams was really valuable, because now they don't have to have another roster spot.
Sure.
Free up them, give them more room to pull guys up or down. And so it was huge for me. They brought a lot of value.
So were you there? I guess you were at the Niners when they went to the Super Bowl then against the Ravens, right? Was that the same year that you switched over to fullback?
The year before.
The year before.
So, yeah, that year I would play both offense and defense and special teams. And I even played offense, defense, and special teams in the Super Bowl game.
Oh, wow. And so when the team made an interesting shift there, and it's kind of interesting how everything has happened since then with Kaepernick and Alex Smith. I mean, both of them, and how their careers have kind of, gone different directions here. How did you take the whole thing with the kneeling and all that? Is that because having that cool relationship? That's a really neat story about how Kaepernick was helping you. How did you see that whole thing playing out? Like, what did you having that personal relationship?
It was tough. It was tough because these are your friends, man. These you spend more time with these guys than your own family. You're there with them early in the morning at 5 a.m. You're there all meetings till about 6 p.m., 7 p.m. on certain days, maybe even 9 on training camp days. So you grow to build a relationship with these guys. And my biggest thing is just trying to understand. People are going to have their own opinions on whatever they say on this subject or that subject. I think that's such a valuable
thing, too, that, people don't want to understand other people, right? Yeah. It's rule number one of, successfully networking or meeting people is try to put yourself in their situation a little bit and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I thought that was the biggest thing. Is more so than just criticizing and saying such and such, whatever. Because when people would ask me, what do you think about this situation? What do you think about Cap? What do you think about Alex? Whatever, blah, blah. I'm like, man, you know what? Those guys were my friends, man. They prolonged my career. It could have been so easy for them to be like, nah, dude, worry about yourself, Will.
Right.
But because they were able to help me, and it was more so than that, because there were so many times that I brought in, youth into the locker room, and Cap would just open his whole locker box. Alex the same way. And I've known Alex when he was at the U. Mm-hmm. So we had that relationship because he played with my nephews. They were there.
Okay.
And Kaepernick, it was just the coolest thing because, everyone wanted to meet the quarterbacks, And so it was one of those things. I remember every time that Cap would have countless shoes, shirts, people wanted him to be endorsed and whatever, blah, blah, this or that. And so when I would bring people in, hey, you guys want to meet Cap? Cap was like, hey, what do you guys need? Boom, open up his shoebox. Mm-hmm. Brand new shoes. Boom, boom, cleats. You guys need gloves? Yeah. And it was like that all the time. And Alex was the same way. I look back on that and I start to see different things of the dynamic of our locker room in San Fran. What made us so successful is because that's how everyone was. Everyone was giving, instead of me, and let me try to take this or that. It was how can I help you? So it wasn't always to the players and stuff. It was to everybody.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and that was a cool thing. And so when people with that whole thing with Cap, it was huge because I was everyone was oh, what do you think about Cap? This. I'm more so just understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone's gonna have their opinion.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great is you have the opportunity to have your own opinion. You know what I mean? But and that's one thing I learned with the Seahawks is
because that's a very opinionated team, right?
They
were known for that.
When you have super alphas like the Seahawks did, you have Mike B, you have Sherman, you have Russ, you have guys like Max Unger, old lineman, Cliff, Cam Chancellor. You have just so many. The main point was the whole focus with the DBs was LOB, right? The Legion of Boom.
Right.
Well, that switched to Love Our Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Love Our Brothers. So that was our whole focus going in. And so my biggest thing was with Cap taking the knee and whatnot, is and I played with Nate Boyer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
who The Army guy, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going with his group, the Water Boys,
Yeah.
to climb Mount Kilimanjaro next month.
Cool. So I know he's going around and doing all that.
He does a lot of stuff with Kaepernick.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And the biggest thing, even from learning from what he shares, is just understanding. You know what I mean? More so than to state your opinion or blah, blah, this and that. Like, let's just understand, bro. And let's just let people be who they are. And let's just love them. Because that's not our role to be like, well, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do. I mean, that's your own opinion.
I think most people, if they sit down, regardless of their backgrounds or where they come from, if they actually sit down and get to know each other and understand each other, that's the thing that sucks about 2019 now is like everyone on internet doesn't bother to get to know anything about the other person. So you have no emotional tie to like make sure that person is, just you have no empathy for the other side, and so you just, instead of trying to seek to understand before you're understood, right?
Yeah.
You're just blasting everybody that doesn't think the way you are. I see so much of that on the internet. So I love the message of like, hey, I think any two people that sat down would probably get along, would probably even understand each other and go, oh, cool. And so I invite people all the time. I just say, look, like before you just take a side on something, well, why are these people pissed off? Why are they upset? Maybe try to figure that side out.
Yeah, because, I have family on both sides. Mm-hmm. My brother served in the military. I love military. I love law enforcement. Sean Race is a great friend of mine.
Right.
My cousin's husband was involved in that manhunt shooting down in L.A. back in the day, the big, huge one. So my big thing, I just try to show empathy. I don't consider myself, I'm actually going to learn, boom, boom, I'm not the smartest dude. And I don't know, blah, blah, this details about whatever. But for me, how can I be a good person? How can I be a good friend?
Yeah.
And I think if we focus on ourselves, how can we better ourselves and how can we be good to other people? Man, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that I feel like really helped me in my playing career. Because I knew I wasn't the biggest, the strongest, the fastest. Like I didn't meet the measurables. Until I started playing fullback, I was the biggest fullback in the NFL. But I try to just, how can I help the team?
That's awesome.
How can I help the team? How can I help you? You know what I mean? All right, cool. Can I help the younger guys and teach them different work ethic, and coming in early, making sure that they're watching film, what to look for when they're watching film. And I think a lot of that correlates to life, man. A lot of it. When you're playing football, you're learning new schemes week in and week out. You're learning to work with other people that may have come from different backgrounds, but your ultimate goal is to win. So you learn to work with each other. And then how can I create a better environment of working so we actually love coming to work, love working with each other, and we're having fun? Because when you're having fun, that's when I think you start to generate a lot of success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and when you had that opportunity, because the Seahawks, you had characters on that team, and you guys, it looked like that was just a fun team to be a part of. Pete Carroll kind of brings that culture with it, right? You had Marshawn Lynch, total character, and you guys were the running back squad.
Yeah.
So did you get to know Marshawn?
Marshawn is my guy. Actually, we talk at least once a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he's my guy. We share a lot of different characteristics of kind of like when we're going out there, look, there's no mercy, bro.
Yeah.
Let's go get it.
Punishers.
Yeah. And so it was pretty cool because, he's a big back. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fullback. I'm a 300-pound fullback. So we're just running downhill and we're having fun. And it was different because I was fortunate enough to block for Frank Gore, and then Marshawn.
Two of the best running backs in NFL history.
It's crazy, man. Mm-hmm. And I look back, I'm like, no, I was really blocking for these guys, man.
So I got to ask you, because you lost the Super Bowl at the Niners, devastating came down to the very end. Then you're on the Seahawks, you're playing against the Patriots, and I think you were in the game the play before.
Yeah, it was, oh man.
So you guys get down to the goal line.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. So Jermaine Kearse makes that crazy catch.
Yep.
That Russ bombs it, bobbles everywhere, he catches it. So we're on the 5-yard line. So we call our base personnel. I'm the fullback in our base. So I go in there, and I think we're running 17 weak, which is running to the left side. The defense was calling out the play.
Are you serious?
They knew what was coming.
Okay.
So it was just kind of like mano and mano, let's go. Right? So we run it. We pound the ball. Boom. I remember hitting my Oregon teammate Patrick Chung. You know, we played Oregon. I hit him, boom, boom, and I look over, and I see Marshawn gets tackled at the 1. So we get up and we're like, run it again. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, they know we're running. They can't stop it. Let's just do it. And then they call zebra personnel, which is a passing group. And I'm like, what? You know? And everyone's like looking at each other like, zebra. I'm like, no, dude. And I'm getting deja vu.
And there's like, what, 25, 30 seconds left?
Oh, man, the time's running out.
Yeah, this is going to be it.
Yeah, and I'm getting deja vu because when I was with the Niners, we run the ball all the way to the 5, and we're throwing the ball, and we lose the game.
That's right, through 4 straight times, right?
So I'm like jogging off the field like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And then, you know, granted, the coaches, they watch film, they know what they're doing. But at the same time, when you got beast mode, Marshawn,
you let him run.
So I think because I've even saw it even more recently where Marshawn even talks about it, and we've talked about it all the time.
What does he say?
You know, you can't go back on things. It is what it is, because when you see guys like Russ do the stuff that they do, you can't be like, oh man, we're gonna put it in Russ's hands, because like Marshawn says, he saw Russ do a lot of things. Like even for us to even get in the Super Bowl, man, he was doing some crazy things against the Green Bay Packers. So I've seen it myself too. So I was like, well, it is what it is. You know, sometimes it just doesn't go your way at that time. But
did the team stay united after the end of the game?
Man, you can imagine, man. People were mad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It was like one of those immediate, everyone's second guessing everything, right?
Oh,
with
right.
the offensive coordinator, at least.
Oh, it's tough, man. Because the offensive coordinator is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Coach Bevel.
Yeah,
so he's a really good friend of mine. We would get together each week, and, you know, we would just, you know, he's LDS as well, and I'm LDS, so we would always get together. And so we had a pretty close relationship. So I trust Bevel's call, you know?
Yeah.
But then you're also torn because you're like, wait, I trust his call, but then I trust beast mode, but then I trust Russ, you know. So you just take it as what it is, you know. And to me, I just look back and I'm like, man, I'm actually just super fortunate I was able to play.
Well, I think that's one of the things that, you know, I know about you is you just have this gratitude for your journey, for life, for everything. Get the chance to play for this in the Super Bowl, 2 different teams, 7 seasons in the NFL. And now you get to enjoy the fruits of that, right?
Yeah, you know, and that's what I always go back to. You know, like, man, what am I grateful for? Like, you know, you see that saying all the time. Instead of looking at things that you don't have, look at the things you do have, and it just brings you right back to reality, right then and there. You know what I mean? Like, like in that sense, like, man, I was a tryout, man. Like a couple of days, I was just like on a treadmill. Everyone was looking at me at Oregon, like, this guy's still trying to go to the NFL, you know, be able to play 7 seasons and 4 NFC championship games and 2 Super Bowls. I can't not be grateful, man.
Well, it's very cool, and it's cool how I think your story, to me, what touches me is just I know the feeling. I have friends that were trying to make NFL rosters, and some of them did, some of them didn't, right? But that like you said, it's like where people look at you, because people would always be like, dude, he's trying to make the NFL about, you know, friends of mine. And it's like you're the reason why those people know, like some of those people make it, you know? And the NFL is so difficult. I mean, there's no minor leagues, basically, you know? You're either in or you're not. And for you and your journey and a little bit of grace from God there, and it's pretty cool, man. It's
a lot of grace from God, man. I'm always so appreciative. And that's one thing I try to share with my kids is always be grateful for what you have. Always work your hardest. And always be able to learn new information. Like how can you gain new information? And then not only that, like how do you apply that information and execute at the highest level? And that's what made me valuable as a player. But then it correlates to like business, right? Because things are changing so much. How can you learn new information? You're in the real estate business. Markets changing, different tactics of marketing, blah, blah, this or that, you know? So how can you gain that new information, apply that new information at the highest level? makes you successful.
That's
and
right.
it's done that for me, and more so than that, like I love being a family man. I love my wife and my 3 little kids, and I think that's the toughest job. Like even like sometimes I'm like with my kids all the time. I'm like, dude, wish I could go back to training camp, man. Like so salute to all them stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, the parents out there, because it's tough, man.
Yeah.
Being able to manage kids 24/7. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I mean, I'm always grateful. I'm always grateful for the opportunity, man. So
Well, I'm grateful to have you on here, man. That's such a fun story, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. You're the man. Keep doing good things, man.
thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, bro.